What to know about getting a passport, a U.S. passport in 2023? Let's see here. The pandemic threw a wrench in the well-oiled machine of U.S. passport services. When offices were closed, in-person appointments were impossible, and employees were figuring out how to work in the new normal. Millions of passport applications got backlogged. Fast forward a few years, and we are not quite back to the 2019 norm, but we are nearly there. Wait times are down. You can take your own photos if you follow directions with military precision. And a new online system is rolling out for passport renewals that makes the process a lot easier if you meet the specific criteria. We checked in with the State Department to get the latest information on what travelers need to know about passport services. How long does it take to get a U.S. passport? While the timeline fluctuates throughout the year, right now our current processing times for passports are 6 to 9 weeks for routine processing and 3 to 5 weeks for expedited processing, said Rachel M. Arndt, the State Department's Deputy Assistant Secretary for Passport Services. Before the pandemic, it was more like 4 to 8 weeks for routine services and 2 to 3 weeks to expedite by mail. The clock on processing time doesn't start when you drop your application in the mail. It starts when the passport agency gets your application and ends, right, when they issue a passport. So only when it's in our control, I said it could take much longer if you live somewhere where mail moves slowly. The State Department can get you a passport faster in emergency scenarios. In emergency scenarios such as a life or death situation that requires you to travel within 3 days, or a request for urgent travel within 14 calendar days, but you'll need to prove the emergency and get an in-person appointment. Walk-ins are not accepted. Current processing times aside, don't wait until the week before your trip to sort your passport situation. Many countries require 3 or 6 months validity on your passport to enter, so keep an eye on your passport's expiration date and your application far in advance. That's very true, because when I took a trip, let's see, I did an Indochina tour. This was in late 2017, December 2017, before the pandemic, 2 years before the pandemic started. And my passport was just on the verge, so I got a new passport, right? Because I checked some of the countries that I have to go through, and they mentioned you need at least 6 months. And mine wasn't 6 months, mine would be less than that. And I didn't want to chance it. And luckily I didn't, because a man ran into a problem. Okay, so here's the story. We were going from, let's see, it was Vietnam. Yeah, Vietnam to Cambodia. Right, on the bus. And then right before we got to the border, some guy in the bus was checking. Too bad he didn't do it when we were in Ho Chi Minh City or someplace like that. And he's checking the passport, and there was a Frenchman on with his wife. And he told him, your passport is less than 6 months and it will expire. You only have like, I don't know, maybe 3 months or something like that. And they would not let you into Cambodia. Wow. You can just imagine the Frenchman, the things he was saying. But what's even more interesting is his wife decided she was going to go on to Cambodia, to Phnom Penh. That's where we were heading, Phnom Penh. And he had to go back to Vietnam, I guess to a consulate, to get like, I don't know, maybe a temporary passport or an extension or something like that. He had to get to, I guess, go to the French consulate in Ho Chi Minh City, because the embassy, French embassy, would be in Hanoi, which is the capital. Well, that's a good distance. So I don't know how that worked out, but I'm just telling the story here that this is something I witnessed with my with my own eyes. You know, so what they're saying here that you got to be aware is true. You have to pay attention. Many countries require 3 or 6 months validity on your passport to enter. And that's true. Because that Frenchman, they were able to take him back, but his wife proceeded by herself to Phnom Penh. Yep. How exciting is that? You going back, but your wife is going alone. Think about it. How much does a U.S. passport cost? For adults applying for their first passport, you pay 2 fees. One for your application, $130, and one acceptance fee, $35. Adults renewing their passport must pay $130 application fee only. It's $60 to expedite either service and another $18.32 for shipping via first class mail. Doesn't that sound like a ripoff? First class mail, $18.32, which will take 1 or 2 days. It's a little cheaper for children's passport, or if you're just getting a passport card versus the standard passport book. Maybe it's a good idea to just have a valid passport sitting around, even if you're not traveling. Then I have to go through this nonsense to pay an expedited fee. What forms do I need to apply for a U.S. passport? To get a passport for the first time, you'll need to fill out a form DS-11. But wait to sign it. I guess you got to sign it in front of the officer and bring it to your in-person appointment with evidence of U.S. citizenship, your official birth certificate or certificate of citizenship, among other documents. A copy of that evidence, your photo ID, a copy of your ID, and a passport photo. There are a few cases where you'll have to renew your passport in person, but otherwise you can do it by mail or online. To renew your passport by mail, you first need to print a form DS-82 or pick up one at a local passport acceptance facility or regional agency. Then you fill it out by hand or create a printable version using the online passport application wizard. When you submit it, you'll need to include your passport photo, your payment, your most recent passport, and if you're requesting a name change, a certified copy of your marriage certificate or a court order of your name change. If you be traveling a lot in the next decade, you can request a bigger passport book with 52 pages at no extra cost by checking a box in the form DS-82. Can I apply for a U.S. passport online? While the new system is getting its footing, the State Department is only processing renewals online for people who meet specific criteria. It takes the same amount of time to process as the mail-in service, and it is only available to U.S. citizens and residents 25 and older who have already had a passport with 10-year validity. So if you go back 10 years from 25, right, minus, that would be 15 years old when that person had a passport, first passport maybe. Among other requirements, here are a few big ones. For example, applicants can't request a change to name, gender, date of birth, or place of birth in the application. They aren't traveling internationally for at least 6 weeks from the day they submitted their application. They're only applying for a regular passport, and they possess their current passport. It can't be lost, stolen, damaged, or mutilated. They can pay with credit or debit card or an ACH, automated clearinghouse payment, and are able to upload a digital passport photo into a JPEG file format. Your recent passport was issued between 9 and 15 years before the date you apply. It can be expired. So keep in mind, your passport could be expired, right? But it had to be an issue between 9 and 15 years before the date you apply. So, you can use an expired passport, and if it falls out of this category here in between 9 and 15 years, then you gotta apply, like you gotta start all over and apply for a passport, like for the first time, which will cost you more. Check the State Department website for the latest terms. Do I need to apply for a U.S. passport in person? You'll have to apply in person at a passport acceptance facility if this is your first U.S. passport. Right, that's when they need to see you in person and you presented those documents. You're under 16. Your last passport was issued when you were 16 or younger. Your last passport was lost, stolen, or damaged. Your last passport was issued more than 15 years ago. See? So, if your last passport was issued more than 15 years ago, then you gotta start over like new and show up in person and stand in line and deal with a bureaucrat. Arndt says there are more than 7,300 acceptance facilities, including post offices, clerks of court, state and local government offices, and public libraries. How do I make an in-person appointment at the U.S. Passport Agency? You must apply in person for special rush services like life or death emergencies or urgent travel by making an appointment at a U.S. Passport Agency, not a passport acceptance facility. The only way to get an in-person appointment at one of the 29 agencies is to call 877-487-2778. If you are deaf or hard of hearing, call 888-874-7793, and they have the DDTTY teletype services. Should I use a passport expediting company? With a 10-year expiration period, it can be easy to forget about your passport until it's too late. In a frantic Google to get my passport fast, a bunch of results for expediting services will pop up, from FedEx to mom and pop operations. What they're doing is charging a fee to submit the application to us on behalf of a customer, which is something you can do. Arndt said of such third-party companies, they're not going to receive their passport any faster by using that courier company. Many of them are legitimate and can provide a valuable service to people. They can make the process much easier for you. But, just like everything else in life, we really do recommend that people do their research before using one of those companies. Arndt said, because you are handing over sensitive personal information and documents like your birth certificate, it's critical to research the company first. Check out user reviews and go with a service that was already used by a trusted friend. As a rule of thumb, experts warn that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. What can I use as a passport photo? With the proliferation of digital and smartphone cameras, these days you don't need to go to a drugstore or post office to get your passport photo taken. Although you still can if you like. You can take your photo at home as long as you follow the State Department's website. Full list of requirements from one size to resolution to what you can wear and what to do with your face. Neutral facial expression with both eyes open and mouth closed. No smiling. The most important thing is that it must look exactly like you. So no filters, photo editing, or flattering lighting. While it may seem like the easiest option, Arndt warns against using a front-facing camera to capture your passport photo. People are so used to taking selfies, but when you take a selfie, it transforms your face a little bit. For a more accurate shot, use a photo taken from a rear-facing camera lens, whether it's taken by a friend or you set up a camera at least 4 feet away with a self-timer. Yeah, remember that? You put it on a tripod, and you could take your own picture and use the software and do that. But the thing is, yeah, it's true. There are 10 years on that passport, and you could forget. So you could put that on your calendar. Like I was at a library yesterday because the job I'm doing on the mobile van, we were working right outside the library, and I decided, I'm going to take my library card with me because I hadn't been to the library in years because of the pandemic. At one point, the libraries were closed, and then the library that I used to go to in Brooklyn Heights, that was knocked down. They knocked the building down, the like a luxury building and so forth. So I haven't been in the library in years, at least to use my card. I did go in the new one, but I didn't, just to see how it is, the one in Brooklyn Heights. But the one up at Grand Army Plaza, 10 Grand Army Plaza, I went in there and I spoke to somebody and he checked and he said, yeah, your card expired. And he asked me for if I have a picture ID. I have my driver's license. I gave it to him. So he told me every 3 years it expires. You see? Because when I was young growing up, right there in Prospect Heights in Brooklyn, the Central Library was just like a few blocks away from me. I could walk to. So that's like the best library in Brooklyn, you know? No other library in Brooklyn could beat that. The only library that can outdo that is the New York Library, the one over there at Fifth Avenue by 42nd Street with the lions in front. That library is top notch. But after that one, I would say the Brooklyn Library. I don't know about Queens, but the Brooklyn Library has a lot of stuff in there. So I was lucky that during my high school years, I lived right near it, a few blocks down. And I used to be able to go in there, find books, do reading, research, stuff like that. But then when I went to college, I had moved out of that area, so that was farther away from me. But a few times I did go back to that library, to get some like paperwork, to do some research, look at some books, things like that. But nevertheless, if you're gonna renew your passport, this idle card comes in handy. Because most people really may not know. Sometimes some people, this is the first time and they have no idea where to start. So this article has very good information, especially for people who never really traveled outside the country before. And keep in mind too, that 3 to 6 months requirement to have a valid passport. Don't do like that Frenchman if you have a current passport and travel out. See, if you're traveling out, and you go through like Homeland Security or what have you, I don't know, if they look at that, they're not going to tell you anything. If it shows you have 2 months left valid on your passport, they're not going to warn you unless they're being nice. But you have to know the countries you're going to. If they have a requirement that you gotta have like 6 months at least, Now, I can only speculate. Why they would want you to have a passport that's valid for 6 months. I mean, think about it. If you're in the country and you have 2 more months on your passport, you could say, well, what's the big deal, You go in there to that country for a week, and then you're leaving. So why make somebody get a brand new passport just to have 6 months on it to be able to travel to that particular country? Maybe it's all bureaucracy, because you come down to it, you can always kick the person out of the country if they don't have a valid passport, and send them home. And they will have to let them in. They will have to let them back into their country, at least into the United States, if they're from here.